Hello, I'm making a special occasion dinner, some really good Indian food using a lot of exotic spices. This is going to take some time in preparation. This is not a busy weekday night dinner. I'm also going to make some bread or challah to go along with it using some yeast, active dry yeast, some flour, some coconut sugar, and 2 cups of water. I'm going to start by putting my active dry yeast into a bowl, and I'm going to make what's called a sponge. A sponge is basically like a starter for your dough. It helps it along, and with dough, it's better to take all the help you can get. I'm going to add some sugar into my yeast. I'm using coconut sugar, but you can use brown sugar, agave syrup, or white sugar, whatever sugar you like will work. What we're doing with the sugar is feeding the yeast because the yeast thrives off of sugar. I'm going to test my water temperature. Water temperature is very important when making a dough because if it's too hot, it will kill your yeast, and if it's not hot enough, your yeast won't activate. What I'm feeling for is that the temperature is very warm, just under hot. If I stick my finger in there and it's too hot for my finger to stay in there, it's burning me, then that's too hot and you want it just under that, just where you can leave your finger in there. I'm going to add some whole white wheat flour. It's a whole grain. It's a lighter whole grain than the hard red wheat that a lot of wheat flours are made from. So it's healthier because it's a whole grain, but you can use whatever flour you like, white flour, whatever you like. And I'm going to add that in there. I find that rather than using strict measurements with making breads or a dough in general, it's better to go by the sight and feel. You see all these bubbles that are in there? That means my yeast is activated, and that's exactly what we want. This is on the thin side. I am going to add some more flour to this sponge. And I love making homemade bread for a number of reasons. It tastes better, makes the whole house smell good. And if you look at the ingredients on store-bought bread, not all of them, but most of them have a whole paragraph filled with things like dough conditioners and all of this stuff that you don't need to have good bread. This has 5 ingredients: water, coconut sugar, flour, yeast, and I'm going to add some salt later, not at this stage. So you see I added a little bit more flour, and I'm just going to give that a stir and work it in there. And I can tell already that this is the consistency I'm looking for, just like that. And if it's a little thinner, that's fine. You don't want it too much thicker than this. But this is a good consistency. And once I get the flour all stirred in there, I'm done with the sponge. I'm just going to, at this stage, let it sit for 45 minutes and work its magic. I'm going to cover it too. Cover it, let it sit. So that's going to rest, and then Avi made his little dough too, his pretend dough. And 45 minutes later, look at that. This is why it's called a sponge. Do you see all of those air pockets? Perfect. This is exactly what we're looking for. And now at this point, I'm going to add some salt. And I'm going to add about that much, about a tablespoon of salt, and I'm going to just stir that all in there. I also find that making bread is relaxing and it can be cathartic, especially when you're kneading the dough. After the salt is all incorporated, I'm going to add the flour, again, a little bit at a time. I can always add more flour, but I can't take it out. So a little bit at a time. And I'm just going to continue to add a little bit at a time and stir it in there until it becomes difficult to stir. So I know that I've added enough flour when it is just slightly sticky. You don't want it to be sticking to your hands, but a little bit of stick is okay. You don't want it to be dry either. So just a little bit of stick is exactly what I'm looking for with this. So I'm stirring in my flour, and at this point it's getting kind of hard to stir with a fork, so I'm going to turn it out onto a surface. I'm using parchment paper, but whatever surface you would like to work on. And I'm just going to get the rest of the flour incorporated and add little bits here and there as I think it needs it. And again, you really want to go by feel with this and not measurements, simply because climates vary. I live in a very dry environment, so my measurements would be different. I'm in Vegas than, say, Florida, which is a very humid climate. So this is about right. This is, you can see it's like just a little bit sticking to my hands, not a lot, but just a little. That's what we want. And from this point, I am going to knead the dough. And by kneading it, I mean, I'm just going to kind of play with it. I'm going to fold it in half, push it down, turn it, fold it in half, push it down. And this is the part about bread making that is relaxing. Work out your frustrations and just continue to knead it. You'll just have to deal with my Hulk hands for a second. When I'm working with my hands, all the blood flows into my veins and they show. But there we go. This is a kneaded dough. I kneaded it for about 10 minutes. 8 minutes is fine. But you want to knead it to get the gluten activated and working in the dough. It gives it a good texture. And from this point, I'm going to put it into a greased bowl. I used some olive oil. You can use butter, whatever kind of oil or butter you like. And now I'm going to let it rise for 90 minutes, an hour and a half. And magically, it is 90 minutes later. And look at my dough. It is more than doubled in volume, which is what, again, exactly what we're looking for. You can see that this dough is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So at this stage, you're just going to punch down the dough, form it back into another ball. Yeah, look at that. That's a nice dough. And we're going to let it rise again. This time, I'm going to let it rise for 30 minutes. So I'm going to cover it back up, let it rise for another 30 minutes. I'm going to put my timer on. And not 3, but 30. There we go. 30 minutes has passed, and look at that. My dough has risen again. And what I'm going to do, this amount of dough will make 1 large loaf or 2 smaller loaves. So I'm going to make 2 small loaves because, again, I'm making this for a special occasion dinner. It's a Jewish holiday, and I'm making 2 smaller loaves because it's traditional for this holiday to have 2 loaves of bread. And also to shape it in a circle. It's the Jewish New Year, or Rosh Hashanah, and we make it in a circle to represent the never-ending cycle of life. So I'm going to kind of roll it out into a snake-like shape there, and then I'm just going to coil it around into a circle, just like that. And there is 1 loaf. See that? Kind of like a huge cinnamon roll looking dough there. Now I'm going to do the same thing. The same thing with the other piece of dough. Just going to kind of shape it into a snake-like, rope-like shape. And then wrap it into a coil to form my second loaf. This dough feels really good, so I know it's going to turn out really nice. And there you have it. Now I'm going to let it rise again. And in the meantime, I'm going to let that rise for another half hour while the oven's preheating. I've got it at 400, and now I'm going to start my curry. And I've got some mushrooms, some mustard seed, coconut milk, turmeric, onion powder, some tomato paste, some garlic powder, cumin, some cardamom pods, some bay leaves, vegetable broth, garam masala, fenugreek, red lentils, a red pepper, and I also am going to put some ginger and cayenne pepper into this curry. This is a very, I want to say authentic curry, being that I'm using really authentic spices. I don't know that I'm making it very authentic, but this fenugreek, this is an exotic Indian spice. It's supposed to be very good for you, very good at regulating blood sugar, and you can even make a face mask out of it, apparently. Really good for you. So I'm going to be using some of that in there. And I'm basically making my own curry versus using like a curry powder or curry paste. It's been 30 minutes and my loaves have gotten bigger there. The oven is preheated and I'm going to bake these for about 25 minutes. Again, these are 2 smaller loaves. If you have a larger loaf, it takes obviously longer to bake, so maybe try 30 minutes on that. I'm going to start the curry by, these are cardamom pods, and I'm going to toast 8 of these in a pan for about 2 or 3 minutes, just to kind of release the oils and the spices to bring out the flavor. And these cardamom pods, cardamom smells really, really good. You can buy cardamom powder, but there is a significant difference in getting the actual pods and roasting them and then breaking open the pods and taking out the cardamom and grinding it yourself. It's a very potent spice, very fragrant spice, and the intensity of the spice is definitely greater if you do it this way. So that's what the little seeds inside look like. And I'm just going to break open each of these and set the seeds aside. And I'm going to save the shells. The shells can be reused. I actually made a really, really good cup of coffee. I'm talking to all the coffee lovers here for a second. You put these cardamom pods into your coffee grinds, like right in your filter when you're making your coffee with the coffee grinds, and you will have yourself a great cup of coffee. This is what the seeds look like. Pretty interesting. And I'm going to put them into my blender cup because I'm going to grind them up. Yeah, those cardamom pods make a great cup of coffee. We're just going to ignore the fact that I just knocked my cup over. That's okay. We're going to get all of those in there. This smells good already. It's a very potent smell, very, very relaxing. Aromatherapy is real. Anytime you can, add something positive in this negative world we're living in right now, go for it. Whether that's through your sense of smell, taste, whatever it is, we can take all the positive we can get. So I've got a little spice tornado going on here. And I'm just going to shake this up a bit and get that all ground up. Just needs a little bit more here. There we go. I think that will about do it. Stick your nose in there. You will be happy. I wish you could. I wish you could smell through this screen because oh my gosh, that smells so good. I'm gonna get every bit of it in there, and there's our cardamom. And now I'm going to chop this onion, and I'm going to use half of this onion in the curry that we're making. If I didn't mention it, I'm making a lentil curry with mushrooms. And I'm going to put half of the onion in the curry. And then I'm also going to make, to go along with it, some saffron rice. And I'm going to put the other half of the onion in the rice that we're making. So I'm going to peel the skin off of this onion. And now I'm going to chop it up. This house is about to smell so amazing. Because I'm going to, after I get this onion chopped up, I'm going to saute it with all of those spices. And oh my gosh, if they made this in air freshener, I would definitely buy it because it is going to be smelling really good in here. So I make these videos all the time because my daughters, Ashley and Stephanie, and I have a group chat, and the three of us are always either taking pictures or videos of food that we make, and then we send it to each other, and we have a lot of fun doing that. And I decided why not post them, so that's what I'm doing. And I hope that if you guys have any recipes or anything that you'd like to share, I hope that you'll post yours too. If not on your page, in my comments or whatever. I love sharing ideas and recipes. So again, I'm using half of this onion in the curry and half in the rice. I am going to saute this onion in some olive oil, and now I'm going to add all of those wonderful exotic spices. All right, so I just added the cardamom that we crushed up. I'm adding some fresh bay leaves. You can use dried bay leaves, either or. Adding some cumin. And going to add some garlic powder. Hopefully you can see the approximate amounts of the spices I'm adding here. Adding some turmeric. So they just kind of go by sight there. Some onion powder. And gonna add some mustard seed. So we're building our own curry here, not using curry paste or curry powder. Building our own. Next I'm gonna add the fenugreek. I have some cardamom that's trying to hide out there. And you're gonna have to ignore all of these terrible camera angles. Like I said, I normally film this for my girls, so not too good with camera. Adding some fenugreek, about that much there. And I'm gonna add some garam masala. And this is a combination of a number of Indian spices. And I'm gonna stir this all around. I'm also gonna add some ginger and some cayenne pepper in just a minute. I actually forgot to add it, so I'm gonna come back in this video and add that in there. This is a voiceover, so I have not realized it yet, but in about 2 minutes, I'm gonna realize I left out the ginger and the cayenne pepper. There we go. This smells amazing. My challah is done. It looks great. And nice color on it. You can tell they're done because when you tap on them, they sound hollow. So there we go with the ginger and the cayenne pepper that I forgot and then remembered. Now I'm going to add some tomato paste. Just need to get that in there. And I'm going to stir it around. You see how the spices are smoking? That's how I know that it's time to move on from this stage. Once they start smoking. And I'm going to add a little bit of water and then work that tomato paste all in there. Just like that. So I said earlier that you can use the cardamom pods in your coffee, and what I meant was the shells. Remember I broke open the cardamom pods, took out the seeds, ground them up for the cardamom powder, but the shells that I opened up, the shells themselves, that's what I stick in my coffee grinds while I'm brewing the coffee to make the coffee have a fantastic cardamom flavor. And I don't know why that is not like the hottest selling coffee flavor out there, because it is really good. So this is looking just about right there. Smells amazing. And next I am going to chop up my red pepper. So I've got my red pepper here, and I have a little trick to avoid having to pick out the seeds from my bell pepper. I slice it from the sides, and it leaves the seeds intact and not all mixed in with the pepper I'm trying to cut. So I'm just going down each side like that. And then I will show you all the seeds are right there in the middle. And I don't have to fish them out. And I'm gonna dice this up. I'll show you the size. Really, you can do it whatever size you like. You don't have to cut it the way I'm doing it, but I'm doing it in a dice. About that size right there. And next I'm gonna cut up my mushrooms, about that many. And these are baby Bella mushrooms. Any kind of mushroom will work in this. I try to eat organic, so these were the organic mushrooms that were available. Any mushroom will work really good in this. Or don't use mushrooms if you don't like them. But this is the size that I'm making my mushrooms, and they cook down a lot too. I added the red pepper into the curry, and now I'm going to add the mushrooms in there as well. And get them all coated in the sauce. The aroma in here is heavenly. It really is. Now I'm going to add my lentils. So first I'm going to rinse them. And I'm going to use most of this bag here. All of it except for about that much. I'm going to rinse this off and then add it into my curry. And stir that all in there. And I'm using red lentils. Any lentils will do. And you can use this spice mix and do whatever kind of curry you want. I'm using lentils and mushrooms, but add whatever you like in there. You could do all kinds of curries. All right, so I'm gonna add some water. I'd guess I'm adding about 1.5 cups, 2 cups of water in there. And I'm gonna add some salt next. I haven't added any salt up to this point. I wanted to get a lot of the liquid in there first so I could approximate the amount of salt I want to add. So I'm adding some salt, and I'm going to add a can of coconut milk. Now this seems like a lot of liquid, but it's not, because the lentils are going to soak all of that liquid up, or a lot of it up rather, and it's going to thicken up really nice. So it looks like it's on the thin side, but it's not going to finish that way. And I'm going to cook this uncovered. I'm just going to simmer it, and I'm going to let it go for, I'll check it in like 30 minutes and see how it's looking there. Now I'm going to start on the saffron rice. I have some brown basmati rice. It says it's quick cooking. Let's see, the directions are saying it cooks in about 10 to 12 minutes or 15 minutes. That's going to cook in. I got that from Trader Joe's. I'm also going to add some salt, turmeric, vegetable broth, and these saffron threads. And I'm going to start by sauteing some onion. I'm going to get my pot heated up here. I've got it on medium heat, and I'm going to take some hot water, 1 cup of hot water, and I'm going to take a pinch of the saffron threads and let that soak in there. And now I'm sauteing my onion. My pan is smoking, which means it's too hot, So I am going to pull that off of the fire, you see, just a bit, so it can come back to the right temperature. I had it sitting on there for a minute. Got 1 cup of rice, and now I'm going to take a cup of vegetable broth. You can use water when you're cooking the rice, but the vegetable broth is going to add more flavor. So I'm using vegetable broth. I'm going to heat that up to get it really hot. Got some salt in there. I'm going to add this rice and toast it with the onions, but not yet. I think I'm going to get some more color on those onions first. You see how this is thickened up already? It looks really good. And I gave it a taste, and the lentils are not quite there yet, so I'm going to let this continue to cook. And I'd say it's about halfway there. I'm going to need some more liquid in there so that it can finish cooking. So I'm going to actually add some vegetable broth rather than water. And again, just because I like a lot of flavor, so that's what I'm going to add, but not too much, as you saw. And now I'm going to let this finish, but it is coming along really nice. Tastes amazing. The sauce tastes amazing. That is not an exaggeration. Okay, so my onions have some color on them now, you can see. And I'm going to add the cup of the brown basmati rice. And I'm just going to stir this around and toast it with the onion. I don't want the rice to brown, but I want it to get a little toasted and just absorb the oil that's in there. I used olive oil to saute the onions in, but you can use, you know, whatever you use, butter or margarine or ghee or whatever oil, avocado oil, any of it will work. So just gonna toast this up, and now I'm gonna add some turmeric, and I'm gonna add the saffron water. Isn't that a pretty color? And I'm gonna add my hot vegetable broth. Just gonna give this a quick stir. It smells good. Now I'm going to cover it and turn the heat down. Not that much. There we go. And I'm going to let that cook for 25 minutes or so, 20-25 minutes. The curry is done. I'm going to put a lid on this, turn the heat off. And my rice is done. See how fast 20 minutes goes by when you're having fun? I'm gonna add a bunch of cilantro, like a handful of cilantro in there, small handful. And stir that around. And this came out just perfect. Once you put that lid on, you don't want to mess with it at all. You just let it cook until it absorbs all the liquid. And that's done. Our challah's done. Our curry's done. Our rice is done. I managed to do some dishes that I used so that it won't be overwhelming. And this is the final dish. So good. Got our table all set here. I am so looking forward to this meal.
Yummy.
You like that?
Mm.
It's time for a lentil and rice close-up. Don't you want to take a bite of that? I do. The bread came out perfect. It's got all of those nice air pockets in there. It's really soft. This is almost as soft as Wonder Bread. Very good. This whole meal has been very good. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that you guys give it a try and let me know how it turns out if you do.